Welcome back to the Real EQ podcast. I'm your host, Ethan Quant, aka EQ. And this, like every other episode, we bring you somebody who I personally admire, somebody who personally inspires me. And this episode is no different. And so, just to give you a bit of information about my guest, he is the founder and chief operating officer of Triblock, a pioneering HR technology company delivering Caribbean-focused solutions that streamline workforce management and drive organizational success. He is also the founder and COO of Plato Alpha Design, a software consulting firm recognized for creating bespoke digital solutions that enhance business performance. With a background in computer science and extensive experience in software development and digital transformation, my guest has led successful projects across multiple industries in the Bahamas and the United States. In addition to his ventures, he serves as a board of director for the Bahamas Chamber of Commerce, where he advocates for innovation, entrepreneurship, and sustainable economic growth. My guest, my boy, Mr. Keith Roye. What do you say, Keith?
I'm really good, man. It's great to be here. It's great to be here.
Boy,
Great to have this conversation.
Keith's so cool, man. Keith's so cool. Keith, thank you so much for taking the time out to hop on this podcast with me. I call it the Real EQ podcast because what I try to do with this platform is give entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs a real unfiltered view of what it takes to be successful, not just in business, but in life. And you being somebody that I admire, you being somebody that I look up to. I mean, your suit game is phenomenal. Between you and Dr. Leo Roll, y'all really caused me to up my suit game. But I've always admired you from afar. But having to get to know you over the last several months, I really admire the man that you are, right? And so I like to start every episode off with my first question, which is, Keith, how do you define success?
Well, that's a great question. The definition of success, I think, it all depends on what you're looking to get out of life, right? For myself, success is being able to push myself beyond what I think is possible and being able to achieve things that I thought was not possible, right? Perfect example. Getting into business was not something that I thought was possible, I'd say, a few years ago, until I've gotten some inspiration. And from there, being able to use that inspiration would have allowed me to say, hey, this is something that's possible. For other persons, success is being able to work a great job. Success is, for some persons, being able to maybe run a mile or do a 5K or whatever that may be. But success first comes from within, right? You have to look and see not necessarily what makes you happy, but what's going to make you fulfilled in the long run. For me, success is a bit interesting because every time I accomplish a goal, the goal always moves. The goalpost always moves. So I'm someone where I try not to really reach for success, but I try to always push myself to do things that I think may not be possible. And sometimes I'm successful. Sometimes it's a learning experience. But at the end of the day, it's all about just challenging yourself, So that's what I would define as success.
That's interesting. I like how you actually, because you said sometimes you're successful, and then you didn't say sometimes you're not. Mm-hmm. You actually said sometimes it's a learning experience.
Absolutely.
Why is it like your perception of not achieving the goal, not failure, but instead a learning experience? Like why that mindset?
Because I think failure is not attempting in the first place. I think you fail when you talk yourself out of doing something. If you are starting a business, you are going to, in other person's mind, fail, right? You're going to try to win a deal. You're going to try to make a sale, and you won't be successful. But that doesn't mean that you failed. That just means that there was somewhere along the lines that you need to figure out on what's required to be able to actually win that deal or to be successful in whatever business venture that you're in. One of the things that I learned, for example, is, at least in the business that I'm in, the marketing is good. Being able to, I guess, have the best product out there is also good, but it's all about people at the end of the day. And me realizing that speaking to persons, touching people, and having specific relationships with persons is what really opens the doors. So everything that I was doing up until that point wasn't necessarily failure, but it was just learning what's required to actually be successful. So once you actually attempt or try to make some sort of way possible, then I think you're on your way to success. But anytime you talk yourself out of doing something, or you have self-doubt, or you just say that it's not possible, then I think at that point, yes, I would consider that a failure.
So now, have you always had that mindset, or was there like a moment that your mindset shifted? I mean, I know for me personally, just growing up in the school system, right? I wasn't the sharpest student. I was all right. I was like a B student with no effort, right? But that was only because I half paid attention, right? And so I used to get called out for not maximizing my potential, right? But I remember, I think this would have been my transition from primary school into high school. Like, I did the worst that I had ever done, and I actually failed one of my classes, right? And so, my whole thing about failure has been, not necessarily that you learn, but like failure was this thing until I realized that, it was a quote that I heard that there's no such thing as failure, only feedback, right? And I really in my late teens, early 20s is when I first heard that. And then I started to reshape my, I guess, perception or perspective of what failure is. Was that, like, did you have a similar experience, or like, was this always your thought process or your mindset towards failure?
So I had a similar experience. I've always been a very goal-oriented kind of guy. Both my parents pushed me really hard in school, but there was a turning point, 8th grade, second semester. I was at St. John's, and I mean, teenager, so just doing teenage things and not necessarily focusing on my work. So that second semester, I would have gotten a 2.44 GPA. And my parents, they love to not necessarily brag, but just talk about how good their kids are doing. I came home with that 2.44 GPA, and growing up, when you don't do well, you get cut up. At this point, my dad didn't do anything. He was embarrassed, right? And I seen the, not necessarily frustration, but disappointment in his face. And my dad is my hero. I look up to him. He's one of the reasons why I'm in business today as well, emulating what he's done in the 25 years he's been in business. And that in and of itself was like, I don't want to let my dad down. I don't want to let my parents down. And I think that kind of lit a fire in me to just keep going. Just keep going. And from then, it's just been, all gas, no brakes. I am the kind of person where I don't like to waste time, So if there's something I need to do, I try to get it done immediately. If there's something that requires my attention, I would stop doing whatever I'm doing just to get that done, because I understand that time is money, and at the end of the day, you have to be quick in what it is that you're doing. Even up to today, I'm starting to see there's a lot of other companies trying to get into the HR space, which they didn't before we came into the picture. But I'm assuming it's because they're probably noticing that there's a lot of opportunity in the space that I'm in. Stuff like that, it fuels me. I'm a competitor's competitor. So I like to see that, what it is that I'm doing is opening up the space for others to realize that it's possible.
It's interesting that you say that, because I find that, I used to say we live in a popcorn society, right? Like, people like to kind of see how you do what you do, and then if they see it working for you, then they kind of come up and they try to copy it, right? And they say, I think they say imitation is the greatest form of flattery or something, right? But you said something. You said your competitor's competitor, right? I'm curious, like, because I know you're a runner, like you run, and how is there any similarities in maybe sport and fitness, like, and like where actually the better question is, where did you develop this mindset of competition, like, or this love for competition in business?
So I developed it, I would say, around the same time I got into running. And for me, I don't just run, right? I'm more into endurance type of running. So running anywhere between a half marathon up to a marathon, right? I haven't run my first marathon as yet, but I've done several half marathons already, and I'm actually training for the Bahamas half coming up in November. So as you could imagine, endurance training isn't something that you can do overnight. You just don't wake up one morning and you just gain a ton of endurance. It's something that you're going to have to do and pretty much go through to be able to gain the endurance to run 10 miles and then just be able to do work or do whatever for the rest of the day. And I look at business the same way. Business is like a marathon. You know, it isn't something that you can pick up and become successful day one. It isn't something that you can create a cheat code and be successful. You have to go through the pains. You have to go through the failures, I would say, to be able to come on the other side successful. And being in a run club just from Bahamas, and, you know, just training for this type of sport, it just fuels that kind of energy I need to be successful. Because if you think about it, if I get up, because I wake up 4 o'clock every morning, Saturdays and Sundays as well, if you think about it, if I get up and I run 6-7 miles in the morning, I exhaust all of my energy, right? And I come out on the other side successful, I feel great. I feel as if I can do anything now because I just ran 7 miles and, you know, I'm feeling great about myself. And that in and of itself fuels me in business. It fuels me with pretty much all other aspects of my life. It keeps me fit, which is good, of course. But I think that endurance kind of training is what assisted me in understanding that, hey, the same way I need to push and dig deep to be successful in this sport is the same way I need to push and dig deep in business.
You know, it's crazy. So I've never run a marathon. However, I have run a half marathon.
Okay.
And I can say to date that has still been the single most challenging physical and mental and emotional thing that I have ever done in my life.
Yes.
And as I laid there on that floor after crossing the finish line, you know, and it's a funny story because I ran the half and I was so far behind everybody else that the person who was winning who won the full marathon, he actually was running past me as I was getting ready to circle and come around to the finish line. And I heard the people cheering. And in my delusional state, I thought they were cheering for me, which I still think they were cheering for me. But I get that, you know, running, I get the parallels between, you know, running a marathon and business. But I promised myself that there's no need for me in my life again to ever run for that long, right? Now, with that being said, you know, I'm a bodybuilder. I love bodybuilding. I love weight training. I love being able to have a vision for my body, and through proper training and nutrition and supplementations from the Fitness Connection, just plug for my bro. But you know, I love that because that comes through hard work and training and consistency, right? Like nobody gives you that, just like endurance running for you. Like nobody gives you the ability to run for 13.1 miles or, you know, 26.2 miles. That is something that you have to train for, you have to earn, you have to be consistent. And so I get the parallels in business. I am curious, though, what other parallels Because you said that business is a marathon as well, right? It's just like that. How so? How so is business like a marathon or running?
Well, because everybody is different, meaning that everyone is on their own different path. So the same way someone could do a marathon in 4 hours, and somebody else could do a marathon in 3 hours, in 2 hours, etc. It's the same in business. Uh, you can't look at the next person and say, because he was able to do this in 3 years, I could do that as well. Maybe you can, but it's all about running your own race. Like I'm not trying to run a race to prove something to anybody else. I'm trying to prove to myself what it is that I can do. So even if that means that it takes me 10 years to get to where I'm trying to get to, whether that's running at a specific time for a marathon, as well as being at a certain, let's say, revenue for the business, is all based on you. And that's why I kind of find the similarities between running a marathon and a business being the same, because it all comes back to you and your goals, right? Nobody is, I guess, racing against you. There isn't. Well, I mean, they are obviously competition, but it's all about focusing on yourself, focusing on the things that you can do and trying to perfect that. Now, obviously in business, you need people. There are persons along the way that are going to come to assist you, whether it's mentors, whether it's team members or employees. And it's the same with running as well. I did not get as good as I am now with running without the help of a lot of my friends or now friends in my Just Run club. So another aspect of business is surrounding yourself with the right community. You're not going to be successful building a business in a silo. Persons are going to have to come into your life to assist you to be able to get where you're trying to go. And what I've realized is that the more personable you are, the more persons that can understand your plight, can understand your story, may even have a hand in helping you being successful. And that's what it was when I joined the Run Club. I probably couldn't run a mile to save my life. I was still kind of fit because I do hit the gym. I still currently hit the gym, but from a running aspect, I wasn't that good. It's the same in business. Some of the doors wasn't able to be open unless somebody opened them up for me, or gaining a mentor that was able to assist me in certain business development aspects that I did not understand. So when it comes to running in business, it really comes down to just running your own race and not being so caught up in what somebody else is doing, because at the end of the day, the success that's for you is for you, whether it comes right now, within the next year, 2, 3 years. You just have to focus on becoming a better version of yourself, and everything else will fall in line.
I like that. Now, and I was kind of wondering, because as you were saying that, like the commonalities or similarities between running and business, right? I like in my head, I was like, but running is an individual sport. It ain't like, it's basketball where you have teammates. But in business, especially if you're trying to attain any high level of success, you need a team. That's
Right.
one of the things that all of the people who are much further ahead in business than I have shared with me, right? But I like how you still brought it into the fact that, you are going to need people, just like in running with your running club, who are going to really help you in reaching what your personal goal is, right? And so that was really cool. I do want to know, because now, like you said, you have these other companies who are now popping up, these new competitors, right? What does that do for you? I mean, in terms of, are you like, do you feel threatened at all, or are you worried? Are you excited because you feel like, I know you said the competition, kind of drives you, but like really, is it now, okay, now this is something else that I have to, like, what's happening within your mind, and then within your organization, as these new parties enter the market, like as these new competitors pop up, what's happening?
So I actually embrace it. Being a part of the chamber, I have an appreciation of businesses. I love to see businesses flourish. But from my standpoint, I embrace it because, for one, it shows that what we're trying to do, people want to replicate, which is a good thing, right? Anytime someone sees success, persons try to jump into that market because they also want that level of success as well. But like I was saying earlier, I'm a competitor's competitor. So if I see that you're trying to do what it is that I'm trying to do, that fuels me even more. The best thing that someone can do is to not show me their hand, or is for me to not know what's happening. Because once I already know, if I'm waking up at 4 o'clock and I know my competition is waking up at 3, I'm up at 2:30, because it that's just something that drives me. I like to compete, not necessarily because I like competing, but it challenges me mentally, physically, and emotionally, right? The thing is, if there are other persons coming into the space and they're actually good, all that will do is make me a better person, because now it's going to cause me to step up my game to be able to then give better product, better customer service, so on and so forth. And what that does to the market is that now, in the market itself, there are now multiple different options that persons can look at to say that it's good. Think about it. If you're in a market just by yourself, you may have the majority of the market share, but you may have customers that are upset that, there is no competition, that the product and services aren't that good, but where else can I go, right? When you're in a market that maybe is saturated, or there are multiple players that are in that market, it forces you to show up as the best version of yourself. And if you aren't showing up as the best version of yourself, you're going to see it in your sales. You're going to see it in your leads. You're going to see it in a whole multitude of different things. So for me, I embrace it. It lets me know that what we're doing, we're on the right track. And it just keeps me sharp, because I can learn from my competitors. If I see someone doing something and I like it, I'll be honest, I'll copy it. It's no harm, no foul. I'll copy it. I follow maybe about 20 different leading HR and payroll platforms throughout the entire world. And all that does for me, especially on LinkedIn, is it gives me ideas on what we aren't doing or what we need to do. Because at the end of the day, I want to deliver the best service, the best product, and I want my customers to be able to say that, hey, we are satisfied with the level of service and products that we're offering. So, I embrace competition. And it also lets other persons know that, hey, if you're going to jump into this space, you're going to have to come with your A game. Because not only am I a competitor's competitor, my partner Duran is the same way. And when you got two or more persons gathered together in the same goal mindset, it's dangerous.
Now, first of all, I love that. I like competition too, but I love domination. Like I don't want to be competitive. I want to dominate.
I agree.
And so for me, I've been told that it's unhealthy the way, because I just want to annihilate everybody.
Yes.
Right? And so
Now we're talking.
so that's my thing, right? But you segued into something that I'm very interested in learning a little bit more about, as far as your partnership. You have the benefit of having a partner who is like-minded. I'm interested because, I started all but one of my businesses as a solo entrepreneur. I had an understanding with a partner, and it was just all right, we ain't on the same, we aren't giving the same.
Right.
You know, we aren't doing the same. I don't work for you. It's supposed to be a partnership. So if you aren't going to contribute, I might as well do this thing myself, right? Which is with my fitness business would happen. So I'm very interested in hearing, you know, your thought process of, you know, how did you decide, being somebody as competitive as you are, that partnership was, or this particular partnership was something that I think would be a good idea, and some tools for navigating. Like, how did you decide that Duran would have been a good partner? What were the things that you look for in a partner? And then how do you navigate? Because I think a partnership, just like any other relationship, there is obviously going to come a point in time where, you know, there may be a difference of opinion. And so how do you, I guess, navigate disagreements, or moments of contention within the partnership? So if you could kind of share a bit about that.
Okay, so I'll start first about I guess why it's important to have a partner. So, like I was telling you before, my dad, him and his partner, they ran a subcontracting construction company for about 25 years, and he met his partner on the job, right? He met his partner on the job, and it was as simple as just trying to figure out how we can come together to make some more money. When I met Duran, we both got hired at Cable Bahamas, doing the same thing, which was software development, at the same time. And when I came back home, running a business wasn't necessarily on my mind. What was on my mind was, you know, I got this new job, you know, making okay money. So now it was about solidifying myself within this company. So when I met Duran, you know, first of all, I didn't know he was going to be younger than me. He's about 2 years younger than me. But something about Duran, just what he represents and kind of his own vision, light a fire in me personally, right? See, with Duran, he kind of helped me understand the importance of wanting to do things very, very fast, which is why our partnership works, right? Duran is the kind of guy where, you know, he will make decisions very, very quickly. I'm the kind of guy where I'm going to have to think on it and check me tomorrow, because I don't like to make decisions that quickly, right? I like to think on it, and I'm very, I would say, thorough in decision making. My goals and Duran's goals were pretty much the same. And 3 months into working at Cable Bahamas, we just had a conversation in the office, and we was just like, you know, what are your plans for the next few years? And when he brought up, you know, doing his own thing, I said those are my plans as well. And what hit me was the fact that when we decided that we were going to create this business together, we didn't wait tomorrow. We got on a call that night, and we started drafting up what it is we need to do, right? Now, my goals really was, after 10 years, start a business, take the pension out of what I invested into cable and start my business. Duran was like, you know, he only trying to work here for about 3 years. And from there, he's on to the next thing. And what used to intrigue me was the fact that, you know, if he wants this kind of stuff, why can't I want this as well? And like that kind of aspect kind of helped me increase my own vision and really get aligned with what's actually possible. So from there, we started building the business. At that time, it wasn't called Plato Alpha. It was called Base Road Software Solutions. Nobody knows this, right? It lasts for about 3-4 months. And essentially what we were only doing was just building websites, e-commerce platforms, etc. It then came a time where we realized that the services we're offering were not going to be highly successful because a lot of persons are doing it, and there's no sort of way to generate any recurring revenue. So that's when we realized that, hey, we need to figure out a product we can build and sell as a subscription to companies. And at the time, one of the things we thought about was HR and payroll, simply because Cable Bahamas was in the process of switching their payroll system, and we said, hey, we can build it and we can resell it to Cable Bahamas. That didn't work, but through market research, we realized that there are a lot of other companies that are looking for something like this, and that's how Triblock was born, and that's how we are where we are now. Now, in terms of navigating differences, both Duran and myself are both introverts. I do think we think very similar, but I think over time we started to realize and get into a flow as to who each other, like how we operate, right? We don't always agree on the same things, but what we both do is figure out, where the breakdown may be and figure out a good middle ground. There may be times where Duran may want to do something that I may not be comfortable with. So depending on what that may be, and if the reasoning is good enough, right? Because one thing that I can personally say is that we both don't get our feelings or emotions into making business decisions, right? If it doesn't really make dollars and cents, even though you may want to do it from either end, if it doesn't make dollars and cents, then it's not going to happen, right? Another thing is, our backgrounds are very similar. We're both around the same age. His birthday is 4 days before mine, and for some reason, I just felt like I've known him all my life, I would consider, Duran being my partner as a blessing, because some persons, they partner up and it doesn't measure up to the kind of success they're looking for, Some persons partner up and pretty much get robbed into the deal. But I was blessed to be able to have Duran as a partner. And, it's been great so far. I'm pretty sure it's going to be great as long as we're in business, which we're going to be in business for a long time. And I'm happy for him personally, I want to see him succeed. He wants to see me succeed. There isn't anything that I wouldn't do for him as a friend and as a partner. So I think sometimes persons get it right, sometimes persons don't get it right. I can't really give you the formula on how to find a particular partner, but I think it's a feeling. And I think if both persons have the same goals, you remove the ego out of it, then I think you can be successful in the long term.
Oh, I like that, man. So there isn't this is the first thing you look for in a partner. Second thing, there isn't that. You say you got to trust your intuition.
It was all about trust, because when we started, I think I was about 23 when I met him. He was about 21. And all through my mind was, if this doesn't work, I'm still very young. I could get my job back, Right. So there's things I could fall back on. But, again, with him, he was of the impression that there is no falling back. There is no going back. Like, once we make this decision, we're all in, And, a person that inspired me as well, because I'm a very conservative kind of guy, I take risk, but I take calculated risk. With Duran likes to take very big risks. Sometimes it'll make you feel uncomfortable, right? But, we find a way to meet in the middle where the goal setting isn't too outrageous, but it isn't too conservative to where, we're not pushing ourselves. Perfect example is at the beginning of the year, we forecasted, what our projected revenue would be. He had a number, I had a number. His number was a bit aggressive. Mine was slightly aggressive, but more conservative, pretty much because it's a bit better with numbers, right? Now, to date, we're going to hit my goal, but I'm of the impression that if I had set the same goal as Duran, we probably would have hit that goal as well. So going into next year, whatever that goal is, I'm just going to be like, okay, let's do it. So that, stuff like that, I think, you tend to learn after a while knowing somebody. But I think in whatever you do, having a partner is very, very important.
Oh, that's awesome, man. I like to ask my entrepreneurs because I have many sleepless nights. Just thinking about all of the various things that come with entrepreneurship, right? What keeps Keith up at night? Or Keith is don't lose sleep over nothing.
Well, so I'll say that I get my 8 hours of sleep simply because I have to be up at 4 o'clock in the morning. But what keeps me up at night, really, in my head, is the fact that I have a lot of people depending on me. Right? As you know, you're in business. It isn't just yourself. You have employees. You have a wife. I don't have any kids yet, but that's in the making. It's in the works, and I have a lot of people that just is depending on me and my success. So I always tell myself that I can't take a day off. I can't not do the things that's required for me to be successful, because I understand that if I let myself down, then I'm letting a lot of other persons down as well. I have team members that are just got engaged, just had a child. I have other team members with just different goals and aspirations, and I understand that what I provide to them is a part of them being able to meet their own goals. So all of that is what just keeps me going. I want not necessarily success to be for me, but I want it to be through me. I want other persons to be successful as a result of my success. And anytime I see any sort of success story from any of my employees about what they're currently doing, knowing that I could have been a part of that, is kind of the main reason that would keep me up at night. I mean, payroll as well, obviously, amongst other things that the business has to deal with. But knowing that persons are depending on me, my family, my immediate family, extended family is what keeps me up at night and essentially keeps the fire burning.
Awesome. Love that. Love that. So somebody's watching this right now, right? Like if you could leave them with one piece of advice, whether it's business, training for a marathon or half marathon, or even just life, like what is that one thing you would like to leave our audience with?
Don't wait to start. Start today. The longer you take to do something, the less chance or percentage of you succeeding at that is what's going to happen. The interesting thing in life is we don't know when our time is going to end. We don't know if, this year is our last year. So if you don't make the decision today to do what it is you need to do, you won't be able to show up as the man or woman you want to be tomorrow. When I look at where I want to be in 10 years, I'm not going to get to that position if I don't make the decision today to do what's required. And a lot of persons, they have lofty goals. They want to do certain things. They want to travel. They want to just do whatever. But they never make the first step. And there are some persons that make the first step, and when they realize that if they would have done it sooner, they probably would have been successful sooner as well. So whatever it is that you're doing, a business, marathon, or maybe you're studying for an exam, maybe you're trying to get into this college, but it requires you to do specific things today, don't wait. Get it done as soon as possible. That would be the biggest thing that I would tell anybody, because time is very interesting. Time could be on your side, and then time can be against you, but it depends on what you do with that time. So that's what I would say to anybody in terms of advice. Do not wait till tomorrow to put off what you can do right now.
I love it. I love it. Man, Keith, thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on the Really Q podcast. It's always a pleasure sitting down talking with you. Like I said, I've admired you from afar for a while, and just being able to continue to nourish this relationship is a blessing in and of itself. All right, so I appreciate your time.
Absolutely,
today. And there you have it, guys. So, just wrapped up an amazing conversation with Keith Roye. And I can tell you, key takeaways from the conversation was that business is a marathon, not a sprint. You want to train, you want to build capacity, and you want to build your endurance. When it comes to the issue of partnership, if you're seeking a partner, if you want a partner, if you're considering a partner, going into business, that is, with a partner, trust your feeling, trust your gut. What is your intuition telling you? And the next thing is, do not wait. Do not put off for tomorrow what you can do today, because time is promised to nobody. All right. And just like that, this is the end of this episode of the Real EQ podcast. I'm your host, EQ. And until next time, don't forget to do the work and get uncomfortable. Peace. Good.
All right. Cool.
That was, oh yeah.